Did you know that somewhere in the fathomless spans of the planet Earth resides a land of such untouched virgin bounty? It is the sovereign duty of all free men to defend her honor from all enemies, foreign and domestic, to throw back its oppressors, both real and especially imagined, lest the cause of freedom and liberty lapse into the maw of authoritarianism or anarchy. Marshal your men of fighting age, women to the fucking factories, for if we fail to stand now, a generation hence, we may no longer have a United States of America. Wait, what's that? The Ukraine. Oh, what the are you shitting? Well, the bombing's begun. The streets of D.C. echo with the sounds of 1,000 prayers, mostly to Mammon and Moloch, but still, it's 2022. It's a day ending in Y, so of course, it's all fucking Trump's fault. No wonder this dude's a titan of real estate. He's been living rent-free for the past 5 fucking years. With everyone from CNN to perennial astroturfed favorite Occupy Democrats alleging Trump is to blame as he was, and I quote, a puppet of Putin. I see. So if I can parse the skullduggery here, Putin's master plan was to interfere in the U.S. election, install Trump, so his own ally, Syria, could be bombed by him and then not invade the Ukraine until after he's out of office? Hey, what chapter of Sun Tzu's The Art of War says install a puppet at incalculable expense and then don't do a fucking thing with them? If the White House were spinning any harder, they'd qualify for fucking hurricane relief. But by all means, let's read that Putin puppet scorecard. As near as I can discern, Trump imposed Russian sanctions immediately after ascending to office, greenlit the Keystone Pipeline while citing the need for the U.S. to ameliorate its reliance on Russian oil specifically. And oh yeah, there was that time he bombed the bejesus out of Syria, a military ally of fucking Russia. A move I disagreed with vociferously at the time, though I do acknowledge with the benefit of hindsight that it was in all likelihood a simple show of force to put Putin out of the region and get the goddamn Syrians to stay in their fucking lane. I'd add that it may have been this event that put Putin back in the Ukrainian invasion closet for a spell, as an underreported fact from this exchange was when Russia claimed that if Syria were struck, they would deploy, and I quote, advanced battle systems, to which Trump called his bluff, wiped out an entire Syrian airfield with a bunch of Russian mercenaries in it, and Putin did dick on account of he either didn't have or hadn't tested said battle systems. However you feel about Trump and how he handled the Syria situation, and certainly I had enough reservations to open a fucking casino, that, children, is what you call a show of fucking force. Which brings us to the Biden column of the Putin puppet scorecard. Palooka Joe not only lifted Trump's sanctions against Russia, he did so almost immediately after being attaining higher office. As part of the Green New Deal dipshittery, he also immediately nixed all construction of the Keystone Pipeline, putting Russian oil back on America's menu, and then, whereas Trump bombed Russia's primary Middle East military ally, Biden shook his fist vigorously in Russia's general direction. Ooh, easy there, Putin. If you're not careful, Biden will evacuate all U.S. military and leave $80 billion butt-fucking-dollars in advanced military hardware behind in the process. Fuck! Who knew Ukraine was malarkey? Better still, his unofficial press corps and the mainstream media are now trumpeting the cartoonish narrative that it's our reliance on Russian oil that is in fact causing America's rampant inflation. You know, the inflation that began to skyrocket from almost the exact instant slow Biden wrapped his hands around the oval orifice and inhaled fucking deeply. Hell of a thing being born yesterday, ain't it? Look, Putin's a prick. While others in the rightosphere exchanged admittedly hilarious shirtless bear riding memes, I've seen him for what he is for a fucking minute. An authoritarian aspirant, albeit one whose oligarchical economy has thus far hamstrung his every ongoing effort to realize those rapacious ambitions. A mitigative factor that I would add will remain in place even after this seizure of Ukrainian territory, might I add. But folks, after the 20-year agony in Afghanistan, not to mention the Iraqi experiment, may I advance the radical notion that we should probably just stay the pierogi fried bad fuck out of this. It's not my son sitting on the board of a Ukrainian oil company. Because when I see Biden banging the war drums this hard, all I can remember is how his last 3 war drum recitals ended. Trolling tanky Twitter and replacing every mention of Putin with Saddam Hussein is about the closest thing to 2003 time travel you can currently experience. Look, am I an expert in Eurasian politics? Far the fuck from it. Everything I know about Russia was pieced together from James Bond movies, Colossus, and Rocky and Bullwinkle reruns. Problem is, the same can be said for our fucking president, only he read the TV Guide recap. I wouldn't challenge Putin to a push-up contest, Joe. Look, whether you're an interventionist or anti-interventionist, we can probably all agree that regardless of what your policy is, you may actually need a Russia policy. And for all his John Wayne soliloquies about red lines, which for the record's about the only line Hunter Biden didn't snort, that's precisely what the Biden administration lacks. And it's echoed in his hapless handling of this situation. After cock measuring and bloviating about protecting Ukrainian sovereignty, Biden's tactics are about as incoherent as he is. If you're looking for leverage, the threat of military force does less than nil if the moment negotiations are actually opened, you shut them the fuck down and get some goof in hipster glasses to proclaim Putin was operating in bad faith. Yeah, no fucking shit, Columbo. The entire negotiation's happening because Russia were operating in bad fucking faith. That is why you're negotiating with the threat of military action back in your butt fucking play. Look, I'm an angry, ignorant asshole with a pooper parked in a computer chair, and even I know enough to tell you this. So if using the military as leverage for a peaceful outcome isn't your game, you better be prepared for a fight, because the 2,000 troops you just deployed ain't doing pine fresh fuck all.
Russia has an army. Ukraine doesn't really have an army. So, are you going to defend the sovereignty of Ukraine? Are you going to make a statement publicly that you're going to defend the sovereignty of Ukraine? Because if you make that statement, you're going to have to send 250,000 American boys and girls to Ukraine for a long period of time to defend that sovereignty. So if you're going to make aggressive statements of deterrence or strength against Russia, your means better line up, right, with your policy announcements. It's one thing to not recognize Russian incorporation of Crimea, right? Russian annexation of Crimea, not recognize that. We didn't recognize Soviet annexation of the Baltic republics either, as you know. So our ambassador in Moscow couldn't go to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania because the Americans didn't recognize their incorporation into the Soviet Union. Right? It's one thing not to recognize. It's another thing to talk about rollback or to talk about military confrontation. That's fine if you're ready to send 250,000 American boys and girls there to defend that sovereignty, because Russia, as I said, has a real army.
You heard that right, folks, 250,000, and that's a conservative estimate from a Soviet scholar at Princeton, against a country with an arsenal of, 7,700 nuclear warheads, ICBMs very much included. Sleep tight. The real kind, not the bottle rocket North Korean kind that fishtail into a fucking preschool 5 seconds after launch. Someone tell Uncle Touchy Time if he ain't prepared to talk with the Ruskies, he better be prepared to shoot, because there's a name for the 2,000 troops he shipped off to the Ukraine unilaterally and without congressional approval. Target practice. Hey, who knows? Perhaps that's the closest thing this prick has to an actual play. Deliberately under-deploy U.S. troops and pray to fucking Baphomet Putin decides to murder the living shit out of him, effectively ensuring a massacre and a PR disaster to attempt to turn the tide of public approval away from isolationism and back to ill-fated fucking police actions. Because at present, the overwhelming majority say stay the fuck at home. Hey, you should be familiar with the stay the hell at home formulation, Joe. You threatened to take our jobs away if we fucking didn't. Look, everything I've been able to put together here in communicating with people I'm acquainted with from the Ukraine tells me that the prevailing sentiment is leave us the fuck alone and let us deal with our own shit, because you're only gonna make it worse. Hard to believe sending Kamala failed to fucking smooth this shit out. She's been so adept at solving our border dispute. Look, this could go wrong about 11,000 separate fucking ways. Myself, I am giddy with anticipation to see how Biden figures out a way to surrender the Ukraine to the fucking Taliban. Why, he's already reinstituted the Trump-era sanctions he lifted for nary a logical reason and assures us all he's assembled a crack staff. But enough about his son. I'm Razor Fist God fucking Speed.
little bit of chicken fried.